Hey y'all, welcome back to a brand new reaction video. g0ldenxsierra here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get right into the video because this one is pretty long. So first, I'm gonna tell y'all what we're reacting to. We're reacting to Criminal Psychologist Explains the Twisted Mind of Jeffrey Dahmer. Yes, I'm reacting to Jeffrey Dahmer because his case or story is very interesting to me. Not even gonna lie. I like, ooh, yeah, I just cracked my knuckles. I like hearing about, well, I'm not saying I like what he did, but I'm saying I like I just like hearing about the case. It's interesting. I don't know. Very into, you know, scary stuff. So I don't know. You know me, you know. I just love thrilling and scary and I like crime stuff like that. Like, yeah, I wanted to react to this video because, like I said, I think it's gonna be interesting. It's a psychologist. He's gonna explain like why Jeffrey went through what he did or what he thinks how he got to that point. I've seen a little bit of it on TikTok, so I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna react to this," because it was, like I keep saying, it was very interesting. But before we get into this video, hit that subscribe button and give it a huge like, and comment below how you feel about, you know, Jeffrey and stuff and his case and everything. And yeah, and I want to say, like, I've seen the Netflix film. I like it. It was very, I really like how they show a perspective of a few victims that Jeffrey killed, and I really like how they did that. But I know some of the stuff that they showed wasn't true because y'all know Netflix really be dragging stuff, okay? Like, we're not gonna sit here and lie. Like, Netflix really be dragging stuff. Some of that stuff was probably false and didn't happen, but you know, Netflix loves drama. Like, loves being crazy with it, you know? I just love how they showed like a glimpse of what happened, and then it was just more of what Jeffrey did, and it was very sick and disturbing, but I could still watch it and it was really good. Like, I give it a 10 out of 10. If you haven't seen it, it's called Monster, the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, I think. It's something like that. But it's on Netflix. It's like the #1 show in the world right now. Y'all should go watch it. I highly recommend. But if you're not into like gory, because it is kind of like, it just shows stuff that that's very like disturbing. If you're not into that type of stuff, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm not really a huge fan of crime stuff, but I just like crime cases. I like serial killer crime, that type of crimes. I don't know, I'm just into like maybe I'm sick. I hope I'm not sick because I like hearing about killing stuff. I'm not sick, y'all. Let's just move on with the video. Yeah, let's get right into it. So we're about to screen record. This is 22 minutes long, like I told y'all in the beginning. This is really long. Yo, I look a mess. I'm sorry. And I got this jacket on because it's cold. Okay? It's freezing in here. But we're about to start screen recording in 3, 2, 1, go.
He is one of the most infamous serial killers in modern history. Jeffrey Dahmer, necrophiliac and cannibal, murdered 17 men and boys over the course of 13 years. But what was going on in the mind of this monster? Are killers born evil, or do they become evil over time?
My name is Dr. Eric Hickey. I'm a criminal psychologist by trade, and my areas of expertise are homicide, sex crime, and psychopathology. I work on the dark side, pretty much.
Dr. Hickey has an unusual connection to the Dahmer case that no other criminal psychologist has.
I became involved with the Dahmer case many years ago. I happened to be in a store. I saw a man who looked unusual. So I just walked over to him and started talking to him. And he said he was from Chicago. I said, well, what brings you to California? And he said, my mom tried to kill herself. And I came out to help her. I said, I know who you are. You're Jeffrey Dahmer's brother, aren't you? So we became friends. I met his mother and interviewed her. And oh my gosh, that just led to so many other things. Because of that moment in the store, it led to a whole nother avenue.
Wasn't that a stepmom?
Let's start from the beginning. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21st, 1960 to Lionel Dahmer and Joyce Annette Rocky Dahmer. As a child, Dahmer was often isolated.
Oh yeah. Another thing I wanted to say, that Netflix show, they had got the characters, I mean not the characters, the cast down to the T. I swear, every cast that they directed, and like you see the real people, they look just like them. I don't know how Netflix does it, how they find these people, but they literally look just like you know, the real people. I was like, whoa. And like Jeffrey's dad, he looked just like his real dad, and he sounds like him. And even the actor who played Jeffrey, even Evan Peters, he sounds just like him. But I know Evan Peters said he had to like study and watch his interviews and stuff to like, you know, get prepared. And he said it really took a hard toll on him, which I feel like I know it did, because I know that was a hard road to play. Like, shout out to Evan Peters, because whew, he said he's traumatized by it. I think, like, yeah.
Both of his parents struggled with depression and fought constantly throughout their marriage.
So Jeffrey had a difficult childhood. There was problems in the home between the husband and wife. There wasn't a close-knit family. He didn't have the attachment that most people have growing up, and he felt alone. Of course, one day he comes home, I think when he was 17, his mother was gone. She took David, the son, youngest son, and left. And that really was traumatizing for him.
The young Dahmer was painfully shy and withdrawn. He also displayed an interest in dead animals, dissecting carcasses and collecting chicken bones and bleaching them. He stated that this process excited him. This is not uncommon with any child that experiences trauma, and it's certainly a common trait among many serial killers.
When we talk about animal abuse, setting fires,
Those serial killers,
these are results of childhood trauma.
I don't know who's worse.
Children can't express themselves. They can't tell you what's really bothering them, so they'll often set fires or hurt animals. That's their voice. This is a cry for help. The piece that we never talk about is the fantasies that fuel the fire.
Dahmer's trauma and fascination with dead animals began to interact with his blossoming sexuality. He became obsessed with having control and power. It was also around this time that he realized he was gay, which made him feel ashamed and confused.
He really was very conflicted as well. He was lonely, conflicted, had lack of attachment. All these things kind of set the groundwork for where he would go. Very interesting process, because it wasn't one day he just woke up and said, I'm a killer. I mean, he built into that over the period of several years. As you recall, in this case, he had fantasies about killing a young man. Over time, fantasies become behavior.
Started having obsessive thoughts of violence intermingled with sex. And it just got worse and worse. I didn't know how to tell anyone about it, so I didn't. I just kept it all inside.
He had a desire to be with someone who had been buried. So in paraphilic terms, he had this sexual fantasy about being with someone who was unconscious.
Merriam-Webster defines paraphilia as a pattern of recurring sexually arousing mental imagery or behavior that involves unusual and especially socially unacceptable sexual practices.
Now, there's different kinds of paraphilia, right? There's the non-criminal paraphilia, people get into latex.
It's like one side of me feel bad for him, one side of me feel bad for him, and one side of me don't. Cause like that one side I feel bad, it's like he's neglected. His mom took his brother and they left. It even shows in the show. She just neglected them. His parents got a divorce. Why can't I talk? His parents got a divorce. I think his dad had left to go somewhere. I think they showed that in the show too. Like, so he was all alone in the house, and that's how he started killing. But it's like every child fantasizes about having like the perfect family, and they always want the mom and dad relationship. Growing up in a two-parent household, that's what I feel like. I even like I had fantasies about that when I was younger, like having the perfect family, mom, dad, and the kids. Yeah, I feel like every child fantasizes about that, and I feel like Jeffrey Dahmer, that took a big toll. That probably had a big profound effect on him, how his mom had left him and even took their brother, and it was just him, and he was probably like, it's probably like, I just feel sad, because I don't think a child ever wants to go through that, and I think that's probably why what happened. He just wanted somebody to be there for him, basically. But I think like his dad was always there for him. His dad really wanted the best for him, but like I think his dad left too, because I think it showed in the show how he left. somewhere. I don't know. I forgot what happened, but I think his dad left and they had left him in the house alone. But yeah, and then side that don't feel bad for me is because he started killing people. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, he killed people. I don't feel bad. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, one side of me do, one side of me don't, because he killed people and ate them, but then, like, he had a hard life. So yeah, y'all, I hope y'all get what I'm saying.
Get into plushies and furries, things like that. We do know by the time that young men reach the age of 18, 99% of them have masturbated themselves into oblivion. We know that for a fact, okay? I'm being concerned about that 1% who didn't. What happened to them? Are they lying? What happened? About 10% of American males are involved with different forms of paraphilia. 4 of those 10 men are actually into criminal paraphilia. About half of those then get into the very, very violent types of criminal paraphilia.
In high school, Dahmer began drinking heavily to cope with his dark fantasies. He was known to play pranks and fake epileptic fits. By the time he was 16, he began fantasizing about what it would be like to have sex with a dead body.
Jeffrey had a lot of fantasies, didn't show those fantasies. Over time, fantasies become behavior.
Don't get me wrong, but
So
isn't that what
nobody
Ted
wakes
Bundy
up in the
did?
morning
I
as a
think,
necrophile.
didn't he have sex with his
It's
dead
a process
bodies?
of becoming. People get into these fantasies.
Prove me
fantasies
wrong,
develop.
but I think
We're all sexual
Ted
beings.
Bundy did that too.
We all have to find ways to be sexual.
I don't
But there
know.
are groups
Comment
of
down
people in our
below.
society
I think.
who are not comfortable in their own skin. They're not comfortable talking to other people. Now, there's a reason why he was more comfortable with dead people, because he lacked the skill set to be intimate. In such low self-esteem, he was so insecure in his own life that eventually he became more comfortable with people who then who would not reject him.
That makes sense. I see y'all after the ad.
They were dead.
It was only a matter of time before Dahmer enacted one of his fantasies. In June 1978, 3 weeks after high school graduation, Dahmer picked up hitchhiker Stephen Hicks and brought him back to his father's house. The two shared a few drinks, but when Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer bludgeoned him with a barbell. Dahmer proceeded to have sex with the body before dismembering and disposing of it.
When Jeffrey killed Stephen Hicks, it was, I'm sure, a great relief for him. He finally got to act out his fantasies. He already knew how he was going to do it. I mean, he had planned out in fantasy first, and so he knew that this was the right time and moment to grab him, lure him in, and kill him. And now he gets to be with the body, and finally, that was his level of intimacy. He gets to be intimate with the body, which most of us take for granted in a normal relationship. But now this person is dead. They're not going to reject him.
I remember in the
They're not
show
gonna laugh at him. They're not gonna make him feel
when
insecure.
he killed Stephen
He gets to do
Hicks,
what he wants to do.
he said he didn't
And I
mean
think
to do
that
it.
really set the stage for later on in his life as he
But I don't know if that's
fantasized.
true.
After high school, Dahmer joined the army but was discharged in 1981. Then, Dahmer moved in with his grandmother and worked the graveyard shift at a local chocolate company. Dahmer wouldn't kill again for almost 10 years.
Hey,
How is it possible that someone like him is able to control his urges? Did he find other ways to satisfy himself?
So that's when I went to meet Jeffrey Dahmer's mother. That was a really interesting interview that we had. So I know that Dahmer had been doing something bad during all those years when he hadn't been killing. And she said, well, he did tell me, because at his trial, it didn't come out. But I'll tell you now, in confidence, what he told me, that I'm going to quote her. She said, he would look at young men who'd been killed in a car accident, they died of illnesses. He would go to the viewings, then he would go to the funerals, then he would go to the cemeteries where they're buried, and at night he would dig them up, to have sex with them. Those are his words to me. That kept him occupied for several years.
I did not know that.
So he kept the fantasies going and actually acting out. How many he had sex with, I don't know.
Oh my.
She doesn't know. She didn't know. But certainly the whole fantasy development about being with someone who'd been buried was really, really important to him.
That is
The
disgusting.
grave robbing couldn't satisfy his urges for long. He even owned a mannequin at one
Ooh.
point, but it wasn't the same thing.
That's disgusting and
In
disrespectful.
1987, Dahmer's killing career would resume, and he would take the lives of 16 additional men and boys. Often, he'd pick them up at gay bars, bathhouses, and porn shops, and take them back to his apartment for a drink.
He was very low profile. He just meet people. He was very friendly. Yeah, invite them to his home. Sure, come over, have a drink. And then he would spike the drink.
And that's how he got him. He was very, he just looked very, I hear a lot how he looked. I hear a lot on TikTok. People even told stories, well, older people even told stories how they met Jeffrey. And they always said he looked very appealing and nice. And he just looked like a very trustworthy guy. And that's how he got him. Because he looked trustworthy as fuck. And that's probably why they went to his house, because they thought they trusted him, but little do you know he was gonna drug you. And yeah, but he just looked like a friendly guy. Y'all, I'm so sorry I cannot talk. I don't know why I keep stuttering.
They become unconscious. In the beginning, it wasn't that way. The men went to his home. They stayed with him for a few days. He didn't kill them immediately. It's when they said they had to leave, that's when he knew he had to kill them, because he couldn't allow them to abandon him.
Yeah, he
didn't reject him.
He didn't want them.
Many of Dahmer's victims shared a similar profile.
Yeah,
they were mostly men of color who were in peak physical condition, or in Dahmer's words, had a Chippendale body type.
I think he deliberately selected men in places that he thought these men would not be missed. And there may have been this piece, I'm speculating on this.
Dang.
They chose men of color because he wasn't a man of color. And that way he wouldn't be a suspect. Because if these men of color were disappearing, they'd be looking for someone else, a man of color, who might be doing it. And he certainly didn't fit that description.
Once his victim was unconscious, Dahmer would strangle them, then proceed to have sex with the body. But because Dahmer engaged in these activities within the confines of his apartment, he had the freedom to explore other sexual desires as well. He would dismember the bodies, sleep next to the corpses, and cut holes in the torso to use it for sex.
Oh my God.
He decapitated and castrated his victims, would clean the flesh off their bones and collect the skulls. He drilled holes into his victims' heads in an attempt to turn them into zombies.
That is so chilling.
So a great question is, how does a person desensitize
Slept
themselves
next to them?
to the point where they can actually kill people and have sex with them after they're dead? Why would somebody want to do this? Well, their need is so great to be with somebody, even if they're dead. At least it is a form of intimacy. Yeah, think about that. It's a pretty dark place to be in your life. But people are there. There are people who do this, and I've interviewed them.
I don't see
In
how
a
he
huge escalation of his behavior, he also began to eat the flesh of his victims.
And then
So there's different forms of cannibalism, and some is not sexual. We know there have been Indian tribes and so forth, they have eaten their victims, but it wasn't sexualized. We know in some cases, as in the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, there was a sexual component to it. Now, there is the blood part, where he sampled the blood. So blood itself is a type of paraphilia. I'm sure he tasted it, and from there it was very easy to then taste the flesh. And of course, terrible thing to say, but it tastes like chicken. I mean, it was something that they explored, and so when he realized it didn't taste bad, then he kept advancing in that and doing more of that. So Jeffrey ate penises. I mean, he ate internal organs, and he was, in some ways, I guess, socializing, if you will. He was exploring their bodies, and he had some favorite victims, people he preferred.
We are a different type of traveler.
Physically, they were becoming part of him. He drank their blood, they were part of him, and now he eats their flesh. It was all part of this, I need to feel powerful. I need to feel I'm normal.
All of this was working towards one grandiose plan that Jeffrey Dahmer had in his mind. A fantasy that would eclipse everything before it.
So this drawing by Jeffrey Dahmer details his fantasies. This end of the table, he had one fully articulated skeleton. On the other end, another one was in the bathroom, that he was still taking the flesh off the bones. And then all these heads on this table behind him. He says, I could sit in this black chair, surrounded by my friends, my best friends, and they could never leave me because they were physically part of me, and emotionally they were a part of me. He said, when I could sit in that chair, he said, I would finally feel powerful.
That is
His
so
words.
sick.
I would feel powerful.
Powerful.
But the truth is, you never feel comfortable in your own skin.
Jeffrey Dahmer was almost caught several times. One of his victims, Conorak Synthesymphone, even escaped at first and was found by police in the middle of the night.
That's the saddest.
However, Dahmer managed to convince officers that they were lovers, and the police let Dahmer go.
He had practice, and the more practice he did, the easier it became. And
You know what? I want him to explain the minds of the officers that let that little boy go, because that's just so freaking sad. How they believed him. Like, if you see a boy naked walking like he's, drunk, and he's young, and they say he looked old, like, you should have at least asked for his ID or something. Like, what was they thinking? Like, if you see a little boy and he already had a drill in his head, he was bleeding from his head. If you see a little boy bleeding and walking slobby and and he's bare butt naked, like, why would you send him back? You should be taking him to the hospital or something. Like, what is up with these, bro? Back then, these officers, bro, bro. Very gullible. Wow.
there was no turning back. There was escalation, absolutely, which would eventually, he knew intellectually that an end was coming. Absolutely, he knew.
Just before midnight on July 22nd, 1991, a would-be victim of Dahmer's, Tracy Edwards, escaped from Dahmer's apartment where he had been captive, with handcuffs dangling from one arm. He alerted police, who accompanied him back to Dahmer's apartment.
When they went to his house, we had body parts cooking on the stove. I mean, he had all kinds of, he had them body parts in drawers. And
Oh
you
my
can imagine
God.
the stench
Right.
going into that apartment.
That's another
Imagine the
thing.
two police officers who walked into that apartment and realized that Jeffrey was standing behind them. And they were looking at these body parts. I would love to have interviewed them. What they must have thought. Wait a minute, look at all these heads. And
Right.
the guy's behind us. But Jeffrey knew it was over. He could have killed him. But he wasn't. He knew the end was coming. When the police arrived, he knew he was going to give it up. There was no struggle from him at all. Yeah.
I know it was reeking in there, boy. Whew.
Dr. Hickey recalls the first thing Jeffrey Dahmer's mother told him when they met.
And then
And the first thing she said, my son never tried to hurt anybody. He killed them, but he never tried to hurt them, which is absolutely true. Every necrophile I've ever interviewed or researched, none of them ever tried to hurt the victims. They just killed them. I'd say 95% of them are not sadistic because they want the corpse to be with the corpse. I interviewed a guy, Larry Hall.
Larry Hall was a convicted serial killer who confessed to the murders of 35 women and young girls.
And Larry was a necrophilic killer. I said, so Larry, when you had the victims down on the ground and you strangled them from behind, did you ever look to see their faces? Or when you had them up against a tree in the woods, you were strangling them, did you ever look at their faces? He says, no, why would I do that? Because he wasn't interested in their suffering. He just needed them to be dead.
oh my God, I could not imagine interviewing a freaking serial killer. Like, just imagine sitting in front of somebody who has killed so many people and just talking to them. But you gotta keep your composure. You gotta keep your composure. Oh, I just know that's so scary, bro. Whew, sitting in front of somebody who's killed so many people. That just giving me the chills. Oh my gosh.
Dahmer never intended to hurt his victims, ever. If you look at some of his interviews, he talked about how pathetic his life was, what a waste his life was. There was no sadism. What he wanted was to be with somebody, and so killing them was the process of getting to be with somebody.
Dang.
Soon after his arrest, Jeffrey Dahmer confessed to the murders. The case went to trial in early 1992, where a parade of psychiatrists took the stand in Dahmer's case, diagnosing him with paraphilia, borderline personality, schizotypal disorder, and sexual sadism. But was Jeffrey Dahmer a psychopath?
Dang.
Jeffrey Dahmer was definitely not a psychopath. Not even close. Because every necrophile I've interviewed or researched, none of them are true psychopaths. So Jeffrey was a sociopath. And the difference, there's quite a big distinction, and I train law enforcement to understand these distinctions. A true psychopath is someone usually who's very sadistic. They have no empathy.
Not they showed Ted Bundy.
They manipulate, they control
when he
people.
said that.
And certainly we see some of that with sociopaths. The sociopaths are very emotional. They still love their moms. They still have emotional attachments.
So is it possible then that Jeffrey Dahmer felt guilty for the crimes he had committed?
Jeffrey never felt badly specifically for the victims. I think he recognized that there was a dead zone within himself. I think most men, I can't speak for women, have a place where we can go where we don't feel badly about anything. We can go there, but most of us don't go there because it's pretty scary to know you can look at someone suffering and you don't feel badly about it. You know, Jeffrey had this dark spot in him which grew and grew and grew, and that's where he lived his life, was in this dark zone. On a personal note, I call that evil. I think Jeffrey became a very evil person. Was he a bad person? It's complex.
On November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was killed by another inmate at the Wisconsin prison where he was serving his life sentences.
I don't think you.
When I met with his mom, eventually she told me that he finally said to her on a phone call, he said, I don't want to be in prison anymore. But I also know I'm too dangerous to be on the streets. Because he knew if he was back on the streets, he'd probably do it again.
He said that in an interview.
Maybe 3 weeks later, he was dead.
Dang.
And I think that when he was attacked, it was probably a relief for him. Dahmer was a big guy. He could have handled himself. The man who attacked him actually killed Dahmer and another man at the same time. I think he had a lead pipe. Dahmer could have fought back, but he didn't. I'm sure he did not fight back.
Right.
He wanted to die.
Yeah.
And this was his way out.
Dang.
I think had he not been killed, that he would have eventually taken his own life. Absolutely. He would have killed himself. As he said in his own words, my life was pathetic.
Aww.
I think he wanted to end that pathetic life, recognizing all the harm he had done to his family, to the community, to our nation. I mean, it was just so overwhelming for him, I think, that...
Like in the show... Ooh, dang, the lighting got horrible. Like in the show when he was in jail, I remember he had a radio or something, and then the guy came in the jail to take his radio, and then Jeffrey didn't want the guy to take the radio, and then he was like, Jeffrey was like, don't take that, I paid I think he said I paid $5 for that, or something like that. No, he paid $20 for that, because the lady, sorry y'all, my camera shut off on me, but like I was saying, sorry about that. A lady gave him $20, and they were sending notes to him in jail, like his fans or something. He had fans in jail. Well, as in the show, it said he had fans in jail. But she sent him money, $20, so he used that $20 to buy a radio, and then he was playing like whale sounds or whale noises so he could sleep in jail. And then like the cop came and he took the radio. He tried to take the radio from Dahmer. Well, he did take it. But Dahmer was like, no, don't take that because I paid $20 for that. And the cop was like, F you, Dahmer. They should have gave you electric chair. And Dahmer was like, I told them I wanted the electric chair, but they gave me 900 years instead. So that goes to show you, I mean, if that's true, if he really did say that in jail, all that happened, that goes to show you he did want to die. He wanted to die. He even wanted to get killed in jail. He wanted the death penalty. But I guess Milwaukee didn't have the death penalty, so they just gave him 900 years in jail. But yeah, I think that's, yeah. And it's crazy how he said, yeah, I don't think Dahmer fought back. I'm pretty sure he didn't fight back either when he was getting killed by Christopher, the guy who killed him in jail. Yeah, I don't think Dahmer would have fought back either. I don't think he did fight back because he did want to be dead. He hated what he did, but he just couldn't control it. And that's like the sad part. Like, that's crazy.
Just knew that what's the point of being alive? I think he'd gotten past fantasizing about killing people.
So, when we talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, was he born a killer or made one?
So when we're talking about Jeffrey Dahmer, we have to talk about nature versus nurture. Actually, nature and nurture. I think that in his case, there was some chemical depression in the family. I think he probably inherited some of that. His father was depressed, his mom was depressed, and I think that helped set the stage for the lack of attachment. Now, keep in mind, we're all different, so we don't all cope with stressors the same way. Some people handle stress better than others, and when we talk about biology and genetics, we have to realize that you inherit things genetically. You might inherit temperament, schizophrenia perhaps, pass on to families. You have to have the nurturing part. So nature kind of loads the gun, and nurturing pulls the trigger. So I think as we go down that pathway, we have to understand it's not just one quick, simple answer. It is complex. And all the psychiatrists who studied his case would agree that there was multiple things that were involved.
So, was there anything that could have been done to prevent this?
Oh, that's all of
He's a
them.
very needy person, and he didn't know how to express himself very well. And he's very sad in some ways, because a lot of this could have been avoided had there been early intervention. But he didn't have people to turn to, and he didn't know how to do it. And by the time he could have, he was already deep into his fantasy world. Parenting is so important. Most people who have troubles like that don't become murderers. He really made some choices. It wasn't like he was mentally ill. He knew exactly what he was doing. He just allowed himself to go down that pathway because his need to be with people was so great.
That is so
There's
true.
a lot of things along the way, but he made his own decisions. And as he crossed those lines, he got to a point where there was no return. He could never go back. And he became much more comfortable with the idea of being people who were dead. And that, of course, was a game changer for him and for our nation.
It is over now. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself.
He even said he wanted death for himself. Dang. Whoa. That word of the day is interesting because that I'm saying it again. Okay, this was very great. I like this. He need to make, I wonder if he got more stories of serial killers he's done. That was very good. I really enjoyed that. So I don't think Jeffrey, I feel like he said, it's very, because when he said is he a bad person, it's very complex because like I feel like he was a nice guy. I mean, it seemed like he was a nice guy the way he spoke and stuff. And he said the victims would stay with him for a couple days, and when they wanted to leave or when they had to leave, he would kill them. And that's like the thing. I feel like Jeffrey was a nice guy. He just wanted somebody to be with him, and because he had really had nobody to be with him his whole life. His parents, like I said earlier, his parents were divorced. They kind of left him, especially his mom. She neglected him. So I feel like I keep saying I feel like, I'm sorry, but yeah, Jeffrey, all he wanted was somebody to be with him. He didn't like abandonment, and when his victims wanted to leave, that's when he would kill them and he would eat them. He wanted them to be a part of him because he didn't want them to leave. He just wanted somebody to be there for him, like I keep saying. What else was I gonna say? His whole life is just, it just seems so sad. I figure like, I know Jeffrey, he knew what he was doing. He, like I said, he just, yeah, he couldn't control it. He knew what he was doing. I don't think he was a psychopath either. And they tried to label him. They wanted to get him in, like on a show, I remember they wanted to put him in the mental facility, I think, to say he was mentally ill. But the thing is that I don't think he was mentally ill because, like I said, he knew what he was doing. He couldn't stop. Dang, that's so sad. I'm sorry, like, it's just thinking about it, like, wow. Just imagine, like, not having control of what you're doing. Dang, when he said the coppers went in there and he had flesh cooking, that really, ooh. And then he slept with the dead bodies. Oh my god, like, just, ooh. Oh my god. So that is my reaction video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. That was very great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. As y'all could tell, I really enjoyed that video. That was really good. I hope you guys enjoyed this video though, and please give it a huge like. Like I said, comment down below how you feel about the Jeffrey situation and everything. How you feel about the show, the Netflix show. If you like it, if you didn't like it, all your opinions. I would love to hear. Just don't be rude, please. Okay, I hope you guys have a nice day and subscribe. Bye y'all.